Hey everybody, and welcome back to Be Like Christ for our 5-minute Bible study. Today we're talking about Genesis chapter 25. Free PDF handout of all this information is available on our website. There's a link down in the description. Let's talk about chapter 25. When did these events take place? Well, we talked about the marriage between Isaac and Rebekah in the last chapter, and that would have happened when Isaac was 40 years old. That'd be approximately 1,856 BC. 20 years later, when Isaac was 60 years old, he and Rebekah had twin sons. Their names were Jacob and Esau. In terms of our characters, this is one of the last chapters that's going to be featuring Abraham. He is actually going to die in this chapter. So we will say goodbye to Abraham, although he will not disappear completely from the biblical story. We've also got Ishmael, who was Abraham's son with Hagar, the Egyptian servant. Isaac, who was Abraham's son with Sarah. Rebekah, who was Isaac's wife, and she was the daughter of Bethuel. We talked about her a lot in the last chapter. And then Jacob and Esau, which I just mentioned, they were the sons of Isaac who were born to him and Rebekah. In terms of our map, Isaac lived in Beer-lahai-roi, and it's difficult to locate that with any specificity, but I've got kind of a general area marked on the map on the PDF. And then Ishmael's family lived between Havilah and Shur, which was south of the Negev. In terms of our outline, our very first section, verses 1 through 11, talks about the final years of Abraham. After Sarah died, Abraham married another woman named Keturah, and she bore him 5 sons. But Abraham's son Isaac was the one who was going to inherit his entire household. Abraham actually sent away all of his children with his concubines to the land of the Eastlands before he died. That way Isaac could be his genuine and sole heir. He died at 175 years old, and he was buried by Isaac and Ishmael in the cave of Machpelah, the cave that he had bought to bury Sarah in originally. And as we just mentioned, after his father's death, Isaac settled in this place known as Beer-lahai-roi. In verses 12 through 18, there's a short discussion about the family of Ishmael. Ishmael, who was Abraham's son with Hagar, he fathered 12 sons who became 12 princes, and he died when he was 137 years old. We're then introduced to 2 famous characters in verses 19 through 28, Jacob and Esau. So Rebekah was barren. She was having trouble having children, and so Isaac prayed for her. And the text says that the Lord heard Isaac's prayer, and Rebekah became pregnant, and she gave birth to 2 sons, twins. The Lord said to her, quote, "2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger." The firstborn was named Esau, and the second, who was born grasping the heel of his brother, was named Jacob. Esau was Isaac's favorite, but Jacob was Rebekah's favorite as they grew up. And then our final section, verses 29 through 34, Esau sells his birthright. So one day, Jacob was preparing some stew, and Esau was coming back from hunting, and he was extremely hungry. And he asked Jacob to give him some of the stew that he was making. Jacob told him that he would give it to him if Esau sold him his birthright. Now, a birthright was basically a special inheritance that the oldest child got. Esau, believing himself to be on the brink of starvation, agreed, and he sold his birthright to Jacob, and Jacob gave him the food. And so that's Genesis chapter 25. Now let's talk about our application as we finish up. Esau's decision to sell his birthright is not spoken of very highly throughout the rest of the scriptures. Genesis chapter 25, verse 34 says that Esau despised his birthright. And Hebrews chapter 12, verse 16, Hebrews is in the New Testament. That book rebukes Esau for the decision that he made. Esau was a fool because he traded something of great value for something of very little value. We may think that was ridiculous, but do we do the same thing? Satan is always trying to get us to trade something really valuable for something of much lesser value. When we despise God's blessings and his offer of salvation because we don't want to give up our petty pleasures in this physical, temporal world, we're making a terrible trade. Esau grew up to regret his trade, and we will too if we trade an eternity with God for a few years of earthly fun.